What's going on, everyone? Moose here, Airguns of Michigan, and today we're going to talk about tuning the FX Impact. Now, listen, I understand everybody watching this video is an expert. Everybody watching this video knows the exact way to tune. So let me just throw this disclaimer out there. This is how I like to tune. This is the most efficient and effective way that I found to tune. I appreciate everybody's opinion, and my suggestion would be go ahead and make yourself a video on how you tune your FX Impact. Then send me a link and I'll take a look at it. Please don't blow up the comments with blah blah blah, you're doing it wrong, blah blah blah. Now that we've got that out of the way, do me a quick favor, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you already haven't. It doesn't cost you a darn penny, and all it does is help me out. So why not just help me out? Also, do me another favor, don't be a Karen. Give this video a thumbs up. Everybody likes thumbs up. Thumbs down doesn't make any difference. Nobody ever sees it. So, doesn't hurt me any, but the thumbs up certainly do. So, we're going to talk about the M3 and how I have now found a way to tune my M3. So I've had a lot of experience lately with the 22 caliber impact slugger. This is my bench rest gun. This is my 30 cal bench rest gun. But I'm just going to use it for demonstration, and I'm not actually going to tune it. So YouTube, if you're watching, I am not making any modifications. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm simply explaining to people how these guns are intended to be tuned. So I appreciate it if you don't demonetize this saying you're making modifications to a gun. No, I'm not. I'm not actually going to turn any wheels or anything else. I'm simply going to explain it. So, first things first, we're going to go over the different parts of the air gun so you can follow along. When I refer to cocking the gun, I am talking about the cocking device here on the side of the gun. We will pull it backwards and then push it back forwards. It's that simple. To decock this gun, you'll actually pull the lever back. Once it locks back, holding onto this lever, you can push your trigger in while it's on fire and slowly close the bolt forward. That will decock the gun. So we're going to use that terminology as well. We are going to talk about this manometer here. This on the right side of the impact is your bottle pressure. We are going to talk about this gauge here, which shows your first regulator pressure. And then normally you're going to find your other pressure gauge underneath the bottom of the air gun here. However, mine is actually on the side here. I'm going to refer to this knob here as my hammer wheel. I'm going to refer to this knob here as the macro. I always get these confused. So if it's micro, deal with it. I'm going to call it macro. I appreciate it. Okay, and then we're going to, last but not least, we're going to talk about this knob here, which is our valve knob. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do when tuning an FX Impact, I am going to turn my hammer wheel to 16. Then I am going to use my macro wheel and I'm going to spin it out somewhere around the 5 mark. And I am going to hold on to my cocking lever and I am going to cock the gun. If the gun does not lock into place, I'm going to gently move the handle forward. I'm going to then dial back my macro wheel until it comes to a point where the gun will actually stay locked back. I may only do it 2 or 3 clicks at a time. That way I'm finding that absolute edge of my hammer, right? So just so we're clear, by turning your hammer wheel to 16 and adjusting the macro out towards the largest number, the furthest out it can go, we are maximizing the hammer on this gun. Okay? Now don't worry, we're not going to leave it there. This is just the beginning. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide on a speed that I want, okay? So whether you're shooting pellets or you're shooting slugs, we'll use a 22 caliber as an example. So to shoot a 22 caliber pellet, I am generally right around 915 to 920 feet per second. Okay, so generally shooting like a redesign, maybe just an 18-1, but I find that this speed right here is very good for pellets. So on that note, we're going to stick with pellet tuning, okay? Now if your gun is already shooting 930 or 920 or anywhere there in the midst, you may want to revisit your second regulator, because the name of the game is give and take. I want to give my gun enough air to propel my projectile, whatever that is and whatever that speed is. Those two numbers are really relative to you and what you're looking to do. If you're shooting a slug, you may want to be at that 1,000 feet per second. You may want to be at that 970, 980, 990, whatever that number is. Okay? So the take part, or the give part, is to give it enough air. The take part is, I want to take as many shots as I can with this gun. I don't want to overwork the gun. Listen, why do I want to have a gun that shoots in 22 caliber 950 to 920 feet per second and I only get a magazine worth? That's silly. We want to maximize the amount of shots that we can get while still obtaining these numbers. Okay? So what I'm generally going to do with a 22 caliber, if I'm shooting pellets, is I'm going to start by taking a look at my rear regulator, and I want it roughly 90 bar. Okay, we're going to start at 90 bar. Now, we've already got our hammer maxed and our macro maxed. Now, the next thing I want to do before I start testing is I want to move my valve out to, let's say, imagine line 6. Man, it is hot in my garage. But I'm doing this for you, so we're going to do this. So a valve sitting here with a knob on the end has 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. These are carved into the valve body. You can see them, or the valve stem. You can actually see them. So I'm going to imagine 5 and 6. I'm going to move that valve out to line 6. Why am I doing that? Because I want to keep as much pressure off that valve as I can in the beginning. We're going to get to that. So before you guys all go, oh my gosh, that's way too far out. No, it's not. Trust me. Watch what's going to happen. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these settings. We're going to have our hammer at 16. We're going to have our macro or micro, whatever that little wheelie thing is, as far out as we possibly can, where the gun will still cock without, losing its, ability to engage the sear. Generally, also what I do is once I get it to cock, I'll actually move the wheel, not the hammer, but the macro wheel, in 2 more clicks, just to make sure that it's gonna hold. We're still gonna move it, so don't worry, trust me. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out at 90 bar and we're gonna take some shots. And let's say that the first shot we get is 870. We're gonna shoot 5 consecutive shots. Why do we wanna do 5? Because we wanna give the gun ample chance to change what it's already doing. So let's just say we get 870, 872, 875, 872, and then 873. Okay, too slow, right? Because we're trying to obtain that 915 to 920. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and insert our Allen wrench up into the valve or the regulator for the rear reg, and we're going to change that from 90 bar to 95 bar. And we're going to repeat. So let's just say that we get 895, 892, 900, because it's not uncommon to jump around like this, 875 or 895, and then 895. Still too slow because we're trying to hit that 915. Once again, we're going to go back with the Allen wrench. We're going to open up that rear reg, making sure that you're turning it counterclockwise. You do not want to turn your regulators in while they're under pressure from the bottle or any air in the gun. Counterclockwise, you're opening it, you're unscrewing it out of the seating itself. And we're going to take it up to 100 bar. And we're going to shoot 5 shots again. So now let's say we get 907, 908, 901, 910, 908. Well, we know we're still going too slow, but we're getting there. So we're going to take our wrench, we're going to stick it in there, we're going to loosen it up again, and we're going to hit 105 bar on our rear rag. And now we pull the trigger, and we get 9, 12, 9, 14, 9, 14, 9, 10, 9, I don't know, whatever, 9, 20. Just throwing out a number because we get a random jumper. We're not quite still there yet, but we're dang close. So we're going to open up our reg again to 110. Now, I'm using this as an example, guys. So everybody that's sitting there going, I shoot 920 with 101 bar. That might be the case. I'm just throwing out numbers so that you guys can follow along. These are strictly just hypothetical numbers. So please, just follow along. So at 110, we get 918, 920, 917, 917, 921. Okay, we have now found right here our zone. We want that 915 to 920. Your number might be 925. Whatever it is, you're just going to keep incrementally raising your reg by 5 bar until you obtain that zone. Well, we just attained the zone at 110 bar. Now here's where it gets great. This is where tuning actually comes in. This is easy. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to take our air gun, shooting these speeds. Hammer wheel is on 16, and we're going to turn the hammer wheel to 15. And we're going to shoot 5-shot groups. And chances are it's going to be roughly the same as these numbers. It's probably going to be very close to those numbers. Then we're going to lower it to 14, 13, 12. And what we're looking for is where on that wheel do we have to adjust it where all of a sudden we adjust it and then we get 900, 905, 901, 900, 901. Okay, so now we just know that we hit the pinnacle, and let's just say that that hammer wheel number is 8. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be 12, it could be 11, it just doesn't matter. But now we know at 8 we're getting these numbers, but at 9 we're getting these numbers, right? So now we just found a sweet spot, a harmony between our hammer and our regulated pressure, right? That's what we're looking for, because we don't want to smack that valve with 16 hammer if we can bump that valve, still have it open at 9. So now we're at 9. We're still shooting the 918, 920, 917, 917, 921, and we're right there. We are right where we want to be. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out one more step. Now, so we've got our hammer set back to 9, because we know if we go down to 8, we're going to go back into these smaller numbers, right? We're moving the hammer wheel down low enough that now that hammer, when it comes forward, doesn't have enough oomph to fully open that valve to allow the air to come up to give us the speeds that we want. So we're going to move it back to 9 because we're still consistently there. Now we're going to take our macro, or micro, whichever one it is, our little slidey wheel, and we're going to start moving that in by 2 clicks. And we're going to keep shooting groups. And you're going to see that moving it in 2 clicks, you're going to probably get the same numbers. And what we're looking for is the same thing. At what point, when we're moving that hammer wheel lower on the scale, do my velocities start to change, right? Because we still want to maintain that 915 to 920, but we want to do it with as least force as possible. So imagine the hammer wheel is like the big dog. It's the one that really controls that hammer slap. And then the macro is like a fine tune. It's like the subtleness of slowing everything down, making it not hit quite so hard. So even though we may have started at 16 on our hammer and 4.5 on our macro wheel, we might end up going all the way down to, like, let's say 3.75 on the macro before we start to see these numbers diminish. So now we know that we're going to be at 3.75. We're going to be at 9 on our hammer wheel. And now what we're going to do, the next part is the most essential. So we're going to start shooting groups. And chances are they're going to be out there. They're not going to be quite as nice as you want them. So now what we're going to start doing is moving our valve closed. We're going to start closing our valve. And why are we closing our valve? Because that valve, in essence, so if you can imagine, here's our plenum, here's our power block or our block. Air comes in this way, up through the port, into the barrel. This is terrible drawing. Into the barrel, and then projecting air downrange, right? So by closing our valve, we're going to start restricting how long that valve stays open. Because closing that valve is going to push more tension onto the valve to get that valve to seat back into the valve body itself, right? So by turning that in, we're putting more screw tension on that valve. So when that hammer opens up, the valve pops open, air comes out, boom, comes back and closes. Okay, I know. Make a joke about that. It'll be funny. So basically, we have this revolving situation where, you know, we cock our gun, the hammer comes back, it comes forward, it pushes that valve rod forward, which in turn unseats the valve seat back here and the valve rod itself, opening up the air to come through into the barrel. And then this spring that's in here forces that valve back shut so that we don't have a long breath of air. We don't want, we want as fast as we can to give this projectile enough velocity to travel down the barrel to reach the speeds that we want and accurately do that without a ton of airflow rushing behind that pellet or that slug, disrupting its flight path. So we're going to start turning this thing in by maybe a half a turn per session. We're going to turn it in a half a turn, shoot 5 shots. We're looking at our velocities. Okay, they're the same. Move it in another half a turn, 5 shots. Velocities stay the same. Move it in another half a turn, 5 shots. Velocities stay the same. Move it in another half a turn. Shoot it. Velocities just went from 920 to $8.95. We just found the doorway of this valve. So reminding that we've been turning it a half a turn. Now we're going to unturn it a half a turn. So we're going to loosen it again, pulling it outward. Once it comes out, then we're going to turn it maybe an eighth of a turn. Shoot 5 shots, see where we're at. Turn it again, 5 shots, see where it's at. Turn it in another eighth. Oh, here we go. We just went from 9:15 to 9:20. Now we're at 9:05 to 9:10. Or maybe we're at 9:10 to 9:15. But we know now that we just closed off that valve enough that now we're not allowing enough air to flow through this valve to do a great job at flinging that pellet or slug downrange. So we're going to turn it back open another eighth and get back to these numbers here that we were originally aiming for. So now we know that everything that we're doing with this gun is now as efficient as it possibly can be. We're giving it just enough hammer to open that valve to allow just enough air to send that projectile downrange at what we want. And we have the tension on this spring up here, which is pushing that valve back towards the valve seat at just the right amount so that it only opens for however long it needs. I don't know. I mean, Ernest might be able to tell you, or Newman probably can tell you exactly how long that valve stays open. But that is the premise of tuning an FX air gun, or really any air gun. Even if all you have is a hammer spring, you really want to do the same thing. There's nothing better than a guy who goes, I got my hammer spring maxed out, man, and I'm shooting 900 feet per second with this. Well, that's great, and good job on the speed, but does your hammer need to be maxed out to obtain that speed? Because you might be able to back it out half a turn or 3 turns before you notice your speeds go from 900 to 895. So the idea is we want to put the least amount of stress on this system that we have to, right? I mean, I know that with the 22 caliber slugger that I'm shooting, I can obtain 1,025 feet per second with my regulator set at 170 bar and my hammer and everything cranked up to where it needs to be to open up that valve to allow that projectile. But why make it any higher than that? If I could obtain that speed with that that valve and that pressure in the regulator, why go any faster? And I misspoke. Those are 34 grains. So, I mean, only use as much as you have to. Take it easy on your gun. Don't try to beat it up. So I hope that made sense to everybody on really the way that we're doing this. That we're starting out with everything moved way out, way maxed out, everything maxed out to the max. We're obtaining our goal here, and then we're backing everything off so that it's not so violent and disruptive to the air gun. And certainly the valve is going to create those groups from going like this to like this. And the reason for that is because by closing that valve gate quicker, we're allowing unnecessary air from traveling down our barrel, blowing air behind that slug or that pellet and disrupting its flight path. I don't want to have to make my pellet work to get back to straight. I want to give it just enough air that when it leaves the barrel, there's no wasted air behind it going. It doesn't make any difference. So I really hope this made a lot of sense to everybody. If you guys have any questions, drop them down below. I am not going to answer questions. I'm just letting you know right now. I'm not going to answer questions on what should I be at for this and this and this. Because to be honest, I got my own tune to worry about. There's plenty of places out there where you can look that information up. Airgun Nation's a great place. Go on there, pull up, you know, any caliber that you're shooting, whatever slug. There's lots of guys out there that have all the settings for the MK2, the M3, and other air guns. So, you know, you can certainly look them up that way. But if you have a specific question, let me know. And I will say that there's even more involved than that, guys. But this is just a basic tune, right? There's slug power kits. There's heavier hammers. My slug gun, the other Impact, that's got a heavier hammer. It's got a slug power kit. I mean, it's got a different spring in the valve. There's a lot of work done to that. This one has very minimal work done to it. It's a 30 cal, and I'll tell you what, this thing shoots lights out. Lights out. It's way more accurate than I am, that's for sure. But like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free, drop them down below. I appreciate it. Till next time, I'm Moose. This is Airguns of Michigan. Be good to each other, and God bless.